Hello students, in this video I am going to discuss the questions from the subject mechanics which were asked in the MES exam 2019. Now the first question from this question paper. Two equal forces acting at right angle having resultant root 32, then find magnitude of each force, and the four options are given. Now here they have given that there are two forces which are equal in magnitude. So I am drawing the figure. So let these are the two forces. Usually as per our basic problem, the first force is P, second force is Q. So here as both the forces are equal, let the first force is P and second force is also equal to P. Now the resultant is given, R is equal to root 32. It means R square is equal to 32. Now using the formula, R is equal to root of P square plus Q square plus 2PQ cos of theta. Now here it is also given that the two forces are at right angles, so theta is 90 degrees. So theta is 90 degrees. Now R square, if I square both the sides, the equation will become 32 is equal to P square plus Q is also equal to P. So P square plus 2 times P into Q. Q is equal to P. If I substitute it over here, it will be 2P square into cos of 90, because the angle between the two forces is 90 degrees. So cos 90 is 0, and that is why this entire term will be 0, and the equation becomes 2P square is equal to 32, and therefore P square is equal to 16, and hence P is equal to plus or minus 4. Now plus or minus, it is there to indicate the direction. The magnitude of the force P will be 4, and that is why the correct option is option 2, that is question number 2. Two unlike parallel forces, each of magnitude 50 kilonewton, are 200 mm apart from each other. What will be the magnitude of moment of couple formed by these two forces? So there are two forces which are 50 kilonewton each. So let it be the first force, and this is the second force. So there are two unlike parallel forces. Unlike means their directions are opposite. So these are the two unlike parallel forces. This is 50 kilonewton. It is also 50 kilonewton, and the distance between these two is 200 mm. 200 mm means it is 0.2 meter. So it is 0.2 meter. So 0.2 meter is the distance between these two forces. We know that moment is equal to one of the forces into perpendicular distance between them. So 50 into 0.2, it makes 10. Its unit is kilonewton and its unit is meter, so it will be 10 kilonewton meter. So this is the moment. Question number 3. When two surfaces are in contact with each other during motion, it requires more force even on a horizontal surface to move, which is due to friction, but frictional force does not depend on. Now the four options are given. Let us discuss each and every option. Now the first option is normal reaction from surface. Now we know that F is equal to mu r. F is equal to mu into r, which simply means that the frictional force is directly proportional to r. So frictional force depends on normal reaction. Now second option is given, force tending to cause motion. Now we know the important property of frictional force. Frictional force increases with the applied force. So if you increase the applied force, friction force also increases. However, it cannot increase itself beyond a certain value, which is called as maximum value of frictional force. But frictional force is directly proportional to the applied force till the maximum value of frictional force is reached, and that is why force tending to cause motion, the frictional force do depend on the force tending to cause motion. Option number 3, roughness of surface. More is the roughness, more is the value of this term mu. So more is the roughness, more will be the value of mu, and more will be the value of frictional force. So frictional force do depend on the roughness of surface, but the frictional force do not depend upon the area of contact between two surfaces. So it is the correct option for this question. So frictional force does not depend on area of contact. Question number 4. The ratio of static friction to dynamic friction is always, and the four options are given. Now here, in order to explain this question, I am drawing a graph. If a graph of frictional force versus applied force is plotted, the graph is like this. Let us keep the frictional force along y-axis and the applied force along x-axis. So if the graph is plotted, the graph is like this. It is an inclined line, so frictional force increases with the applied force and it attains the maximum value. So this value is the maximum value of frictional force, and at this stage the static friction, that is maximum value of frictional force, Fs, is given as mu s into n. Now, so as the applied force increases, frictional force also increases, and at certain value of applied force, the frictional force attains its maximum value. Hereafter, if the applied force is increased, the frictional force falls by a small amount, and then thereafter it remains constant. So at this level, the frictional force, which is called as Fk, is given as mu k into n. So this is the static friction, maximum value of static friction, whereas this line indicates the maximum value of the kinetic friction. So from this, it is quite clear that Fs upon Fk is always going to be more than 1. So it is greater than 1. Option 3 is the correct option. Question number 5. What is the moment of inertia of a quarter circle with respect to x-axis, which is passing through the center of a circle whose radius is 20 mm? Now if we consider a circle, let it be a circle. So it is a circle. Now the moment of inertia of a circle about this line, I of circle, is equal to pi by 64 into d raised to 4. Pi by 64 into d raised to 4, and therefore I of a quarter circle is equal to pi by 64 d raised to 4 divided by 4. So this is equal to pi divided by 4 into 64 into d raised to 4. Here the radius is given as r is equal to 20 mm, which is equal to 2 centimeter, and therefore diameter is equal to 4 centimeter. So if I substitute it over here, it becomes pi divided by 4 into 64 into d raised to 4, means it is 4 raised to 4. So this 4 raised to 4 and 4 into 64 are same, and therefore the correct option is pi, and pi is nothing but 3.14, and as we have converted the diameter into centimeters, it will be 3.14 centimeter raised to 4. Option 1 is the correct option. Question number 6. In three-dimensional analysis, equilibrium of parallel forces along x-axis requires. Now we know that in three-dimensional analysis, the number of equilibrium equations which are available are 6. So summation fx is equal to 0. Summation fy, it should be equal to 0. Summation fz is equal to 0. Then remaining 3 are summation of mx is equal to 0. Summation my is equal to 0. Summation mz is equal to 0. So these are the 6 number of equilibrium equations. Now as it is given that the forces are parallel to x-axis, it means that the components of such forces which are parallel to x-axis along y and z direction are 0. So these two equations are of no use. Summation fy is equal to 0 and summation fz is equal to 0 are of no use as the forces are parallel to x-axis. Now the forces are parallel to x-axis, it simply means that the forces are perpendicular to yz plane. So forces are perpendicular to yz plane. It means that such forces can create moments about y and z axis, and moment about x axis will be absent, and that is why these three conditions, summation fx is equal to 0, summation my is equal to 0, and summation mz is equal to 0 are the equations which are to be used. So option 3 is the correct option. Question number 7. If a body acted upon by a number of coplanar non-concurrent forces, it may, and the 4 options are given. Now here I am considering, or in order to explain this question, I am considering a certain body and let it be subjected to number of non-concurrent forces like this. Now what we do is that in such cases we always reduce the given system of forces into a single force. Now, and that is how we deal with the resultant of the given force system. Now, in case of such body which is subjected to number of coplanar non-concurrent forces, the resultant may be, it may be a moment or it may be a force. So, resultant of such force system, it may be a moment or it may be a force. If it is a moment, if the resultant of non-concurrent forces, if it is a moment, again in order to check the dynamic response of a body, we will have to consider the position of center of mass. So if the resultant of these forces is a moment, then the body will rotate about itself without moving in any direction. So if it is a moment, if the resultant of the given forces is moment, then the first situation, first condition is possible. The body will rotate about itself without moving. If the resultant of the given force system is a force, then there are two possibilities. First is the resultant may pass through the center of mass, and second case, the resultant may not be passing through the center of mass. It may have any direction. I am considering this direction. It may be acting in opposite direction also. So here, if the resultant is passing through the center of mass, the body will be moving along the line of action of this force, means it will be put into rectilinear motion. But if the resultant is not passing through the center of mass, it may move in any one direction, means in this direction, in the direction of the resultant force, while it will rotate about itself also. So second condition is possible. Now the third case which is possible is that the resultant is neither a moment nor a force. In such case, the body will remain completely at rest, and that is why for this question the correct option is option number 4. Question number 8. Radial component of velocity and acceleration in curvilinear motion are. Now radial component of velocity Vr is given as r dot, whereas the radial component of acceleration ar is given as r double dot minus r into theta dot square. The option 1 is the correct option. Now in this case, r dot, that is Vr is equal to r dot, is the radial component of velocity, whereas ar is equal to r double dot minus r into theta dot square. In this, the first term r double dot is the rate of change of speed along the direction of r, means the radius vector, whereas the second term r into theta dot square, r into theta dot square is nothing but r into omega square. Now negative sign is there, so it will be minus, so minus r into omega square. It is the centripetal force or acceleration directed towards origin which is necessary for rotation of vector r about the origin. Question number 9. If the horizontal range of a projectile is maximum, then the angle of projectile must be dash dash with horizontal. Now we know the formula for range. R is equal to u square sine of 2 theta divided by g. Now in which g is the constant, which is the gravitational acceleration, and if the initial velocity of projection is also constant, r is directly proportional to sine of 2 theta. So r is proportional to sine of 2 theta, and therefore r maximum will take place when sine of 2 theta is maximum, and maximum value of sine of 2 theta is 1, which simply indicates that theta must be equal to 45 degrees. So when the angle of projection is 45 degrees, the horizontal range works out to be maximum. The correct option is option number 3. Question number 10. The rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the impressed force and takes place in the same direction in which the force acts. This is the statement of. Now we know that it is the statement of Newton's second law of motion. So option 3 is the correct option. Question number 11. Ball A of mass 1 kg moving with velocity of 2 meters per second strikes directly on a ball of mass 2 kg at rest. What are the velocities of the two balls after impact if coefficient of restitution is 0.5? Four options are given. Now I have drawn two figures over here. Let it is the figure before impact and it is the figure after impact. So velocities of these two balls before impact are UA, this is the ball A, this is the ball B. So velocity of ball A is 2 meters per second. I have shown its direction towards right so that I can treat it as positive. Velocity of B is 0 because it is at rest. Mass of A is 1 kg, mass of B is 2 kg. And these are the velocities after impact. Let the ball A move with velocity VA after impact and the ball B is moving with velocity VB after impact. The masses are shown over here. If I use the law of conservation of energy, it can be stated like this. The equation will be like this: ma into ua plus mb into ub, that is momentum before impact, is equal to momentum after impact. And if I substitute all these values, mass of A is 1, initial velocity or velocity of the ball A before impact is 2, so 1 into 2, mass of B is 2, velocity before impact for ball B is 0, and velocity after impact is VA, VB. I have substituted the masses also. Now after solving this, I am getting a relation VA plus 2 VB is equal to 2. So let it be the first relation. But as there are two unknowns, I will have to get one more equation in order to get the values of these unknowns. Now in order to use or get the second equation, they have given the value of coefficient of restitution, which is 0.5. Coefficient of restitution E is given as VB minus VA divided by UA minus UB. So substituting the value of E, that is 0.5 is equal to VB minus VA divided by 2 minus 0. So I am getting a second equation minus VA plus VB is equal to 1. So solving these two equations together, we will get the velocity of A after impact at 0 and velocity of B after impact will be equal to 1. So option 1 is the correct option. Now you can also check your answer whether it is correct or not. If I substitute these values in this law of conservation of momentum, then ma into ua, ma is 1, ua is 2, so 1 into 2 is 2, that is the momentum before impact, because its momentum will be 0 as its velocity is 0, and after impact also you can get it as 2, so which simply means that the values which we have obtained are correct. So option 1 is the correct. Question number 12. A ball which is thrown upward at an angle alpha returns to the ground, describing a parabolic path during its flight, and the four options are given. Now the vertical component of velocity remains constant, horizontal component of velocity remains constant, speed of the ball remains constant, kinetic energy of the ball remains constant. Now when a ball is thrown at a certain inclination like this, it performs a parabolic path in this manner. So suppose the velocity is u, its x component u cos alpha. So suppose this angle is alpha, so it will be u cos alpha. This component will be u sin alpha. Now u cos alpha is not resisted by any force. If we neglect the air resistance, it means that u cos alpha remains constant. Everywhere the horizontal component remains constant. Whereas u sin alpha goes on decreasing and becomes 0 at the maximum height. So here the vertical component of velocity will be 0. Now if we want to get the speed at any position, speed is given as vx square plus vy square. Vx is the x component, Vy is the y component of velocity. So this component is constant, but this is continuously changing. As such, V will also be changing. It means that speed of the ball do not remain constant, speed is changing. Now kinetic energy is given as 1/2 mv square. If the speed itself is changing, then this v square will also be changing. As such, the kinetic energy will also be changing, and kinetic energy will be minimum at the highest position. So these two are wrong. The vertical component of velocity is also not remaining constant, it is continuously changing, and that is why the correct option is option 2, that is horizontal component of velocity remains constant. Now in case of a spring, the next question is related to spring. What will be the deformation of this spring if a block of weight 100 Newton is kept on it? Takes stiffness of spring 1000 Newton per meter. Now in case of spring, F, that is spring force, is given as K into X. Now here the spring force will be equal to the weight kept, so which is 100 Newton is equal to K. K is the stiffness of the spring, which is 1000 Newton per meter into X, and therefore X is equal to, which is the deformation of the spring, is equal to F divided by K, which is equal to 100 divided by 1000, and which is nothing but 0.1 meter. So option 2 is the correct option. Question number 14. If u1 and u2 are the velocities of two moving bodies in the same direction before impact, and v1 and v2 are their velocities after impact, the coefficient of restitution is given by. Now coefficient of restitution E is given by the ratio of velocity of separation to the velocity of approach, and E is given as, which is the coefficient of restitution, is equal to v2 minus v1 divided by u1 minus u2, and that is why the correct option is option 2.